stuff. I'm living the stuff.
I'm your Carol Master and Dad 5 Blaster.
And you can thank me for covering your astro. Please welcome our first alien expert on LOL, the Dr. Phil of aliens, Cancer, Reuben Langdon. Hello, Reuben.
Hello. Yeah, Dr. Phil of aliens. I never really thought about that, but that's awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Christopher. Appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. We're so happy to have you here, man. And your work is phenomenal. Just to sort of do like a broad stroke, there's a lot of alien disclosure stuff going on right now. We're seeing it, in the military and sorts of videos, but your work is so original because you are using psychic mediums to just sort of bypass the whole ship landing and just speak directly to the species. How did you come up with that approach and how did that get started?
At a young age, I was exposed to channeling through my mom. She was sort of following what was the channeler Ramtha. So I had a little bit of exposure to that. It wasn't really my cup of tea when I was young. But later I started hearing about channeling, the channeling phenomenon. I was putting on these meetup groups where industry people would come and sort of listen and we'd have a discussion about ETs. And in those groups, we'd had channelers like Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, and Wendy Kennedy, who channels the Palladians. And then I realized that for me, it seemed like the missing piece of the bigger picture, and they were filling in all the gaps. So that's what led me down that road.
Yeah, I mean, you literally can interview an alien,
right? Totally.
The only leap of faith is this really a channel? But one of the things that I find right away when you see Reuben's work is, and I think we all here work with channels. We've seen channels. I think we're all BS detectors with channels too. There are character actors out there, I think, that we've encountered, but when the being that comes through blows your mind with stuff you've never heard, it's like this is either great Hollywood material or this person is channeling an alien. So you get hooked really quickly. It's really compelling work, and it's brilliant. I imagine the aliens are a little frustrated that we're not paying attention. I mean, is their attitude cool that we finally caught on to them?
They are very patient, and what is it? I think the Syrians say they have no problem watching the grass grow is one of the sayings that come from the Syrians. So they're very, they can take a long time with the evolution and it's okay. And they understand that it can take a long time and that humans will come around eventually. And so they're not too worried. Yeah. Now, sometimes I wouldn't say anger or frustration, but a little bit of maniacal playfulness, because it's like, okay. So that can happen, but it's all in good fun, pretty much.
Reuben, Thank you again so much for being here. I was curious, what knowledge do you have regarding extra-dimensional interaction with angels? I mean, obviously angels are extra-dimensional as well, but do they interact with each other or do they work together? And do you have an example you can share with the audience?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're always working together. There's a lot of respect from the extra. So let me just kind of give you a little background. The reason I chose the term extra-dimensionals was initially my first interview with Wendy Kennedy. This was sort of off camera. We were setting up, and she was asking, "Do you have what are you going to be calling this show?" And I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm thinking like interview with ET, perhaps. We'll see where this goes. And she goes, "Well, the P's are chiming in right now, and you should probably use the term extra-dimensional because that's a more accurate in your language to what we are and how we are going to be perceived in the future." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, that makes sense." So the way they appear in our reality through physics is more of through this dimensional gateway, as opposed to how we're, imagining flying through rockets and things like that. And when you start going into those realms, it encompasses everything. It encompasses the angels. It encompasses fairies. It encompasses fairy tale type creatures like centaurs and mermaids and the whole lot. So as I went deeper into the show, I started exploring angels and exploring these other other types of phenomenon. And what I found is they, depending on the spectrum, but they're all kind of hanging out. They all kind of know about each other. So there's a lot of respect from them. Likewise, angels are hanging out with the galactics, and it's like one big happy family, I guess.
How do you think extra dimensionals could reveal themselves in a manner that would be universally convincing and maintain safety for all involved, with your perspective? And obviously dreams is one of them, but with the big contact that I know I've heard you mention you feel is coming within the next 10 years or so, what do you think would be the best way that would be safe for everybody, but also universally convincing?
Well, I think the dreams and setting intentions before going into dream time, meditation, us finding our own individual independent connections, making those and deepening those with whatever modality you use. But I think contact is the way it's been explained to me, and just my own personal experiences. It's going to be an individual base first before we get the masses. But the more we can strengthen that individual connection with our guides and with our team, our sort of personal contact team, then they will help bridge the ETs or the extra dimensionals. And once collective humanity has reached that point, then it's sort of a no-brainer. Then they'll start showing up. But there is a large fear factor that collective humanity has to overcome before we get to that mass scale event or series of events.
And I certainly feel like your work is doing that. You're doing a phenomenal job getting everybody's collective, because as Christopher was saying earlier, I've noticed with different channels, they channel the same thing too, but don't even know of each other often. And I love that validation that we have available to us. And it does bring more safety in, and I'm sure more safety for the extra dimensionals to the level that they're concerned about it. Would that be safe to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. And that's what we have to do. There's so much projections of the demons, and especially now with as the topic is making its way to the mainstream, there's just so much fear, and we have religious constructs that demonize these events and these beings and these concepts and these topics. So that's a huge work through that we have, I think, as collective humanity, to get to a place where we can recognize them and not demonize them.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. Well, I'll hand it off to Scott. Thanks, Reuben.
I have so many more questions now after hearing that. That's amazing. The first thing, though, I was saying, love Bashar, by the way, and one thing he's always said is everything exists but non-existence, and I love that quote he's made. So everything we imagine, in a sense, as a psychic medium, I feel like we're channeling something. Yeah. So to what degree do you think the idea of, the aliens or extraterrestrial or extra dimensional beings are future versions of ourselves, to what degree do you believe that is true? And also subconsciously or even spiritually, do we really do have actual connections that we're just kind of blinded to in the physical sense, but in the spirit reality, we do have these connections? What's your thoughts on that?
The concept of the ETs is that everything exists simultaneously. Time is an illusion. It's a construct that we have in our reality because of how we float around the sun and go through our cycles, right, and all that stuff. But when we go into like this idea of the guides or our future selves, like Bashar, these are, I think, more, again, what's resonant with us in the now moment. I think if you go out far enough, yes, we're all one, we're all interconnected, but we have specific beings that come to assist us with what we're handling in this sort of mission. I think we're all on a mission here in our in this waking life of Earth reality. It's quite a big task. I think sure. That that source or God or whatever your label is, the all that there is, has created this awesome simulation hologram, which there's a lot of controversy about that topic now. And these guides show up as to help us navigate these specific situations. Sure. I don't have the personal connections. Probably many of you guys have already really dialed in a lot of your guides. And from my understanding and talking with intuits like yourself, is that they do kind of come and go. There are guides for the specific portions of your life that come in and then they go away. So that, again, kind of going back to this idea that it's all relevant to the resonance frequency of what you're dealing with in your life.
No, it's very, very important too. And I love the part you said about, certain guys come at different moments in your life at different time frames. And I think that's very important because a lot of people tend to think they have a certain set of guides that's with them forever, like ancestry and so forth. And I've experienced massive changes in guides with different chapters of my life. And so some have knocked me across the head. And so my belief is that we all are here to evolve. To what degree do you believe that possibly that, we have been in more of an extra dimensional being at some point that has fallen down, like, in the biblical text of, falling down into the physical earth? Do you believe that we've actually maybe do cross connect experiences and not so much have a very linear hierarchy of growth? How do you see that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's, and again, if we're going infinite with our concepts of understanding time, so it's not necessarily a fall, it's all happening simultaneously. And it's just this version, you and me in this reality,
right?
We're this version, we sort of sign up for the mission. Hey, I'm gonna be the being, the version of this more collective. Say, for example, so I really love Lisa Royale has this amazing analogy, her book, The Golden Lake, and the way she describes it, and is that our consciousnesses and some of these terms like oversoul, we have an oversoul, or like this giant lake, which is a golden lake. And for these individualized consciousnesses, the lake sort of breaks off into rivers, and the rivers go flowing over the mountains and the rocks and the terrain, and they're collecting experience. They're having their own sort of journey going down the river. And then once they get all that information, everything, it goes all the way back to the lake again. And then that information is then brought into that soul group, or that collective consciousness's arena, so to say. So the individual river is never forgotten. It's that experience that it had is still there, but then it brings it back to the collective, and then the collective gets to share that entire experience. So
oversoul is just as, I would say, invested in your evolution as, say, the physical being, I would say, right? Because the oversoul also wants to be an assistance in some sort of a guide or undercurrent of that evolution. So it's good to see we have a team in that sense too. Well, it's great questions, great answers, great dialogue. Yeah. Pleasure meeting you, Reuben.
Thank you.
Hey, Reuben, it's Chris. I had a dream years ago where there was a mantis being watching me sleep, and I was like, okay, it was one of those moments where I was like, was that real? Was that fake? I'm like, hey, people pay good money to watch me sleep on my OnlyFans. I don't need you here. And so I was like, but it made me think, during that dream, it smiled at me in my head. And that's when I woke up, and I was like, oh, I thought mantis beings were evil or supposed to be bad, but, it kind of changed my perspective. And so I wanted to ask, are there any myths that you see frequently with ETs that you think are kind of like big myths, like mantis beings being evil or not?
Yeah, the interwebs have really sort of given a bad, the mantis have gotten a bad rap. I'm seeing on Twitter lately, and whenever I do that, I pop in and I'm like, not all mantises are bad. And I think there was even yesterday on Twitter, someone was saying, put up a picture of an AI generated giant mantis, scary looking thing. And then it was, I think the question was, what would you do if you saw this? Would you run or fight or whatever? And I was like, give me an example where a mantis has actually hurt someone. And I'd be happy to buy into that idea. But from my experiences, I've actually only interacted with mantises in a quasi physical reality kind of thing. So a lot of people have interactions with Palladians and Octurians, or these, in their, whether it's in a dream state or a meditation, or they have these guides. I've only interacted with mantises. So to me, they're awesome. They're very angelic, actually, and I don't have a lot of experience with angels either, but I remember at the time I was like, just felt this unconditional love. And I asked them, I said, are you guys angels? They're like, we're not angels. We're different than angels, but yes, we get confused for angels all the time. So it's been, I've only seen positivity from them. I call them the architects of desire because of their high level of co-creating the matrix that we are having this experience in. I think there's a level of architect energy that they bring to this construct for us to have this experience. And I think maybe the evil projections could be because they are so neutral in their outlook on reality. They don't, they will create a negative experience if that's what the incarnate desires. So maybe perhaps that's why they get a bad rap. They've been seen with sort of more negatively oriented beings, like some of the draconian reptiles and some of the grays. So I think they get that association, but they're usually very neutral. They're just in the back observing. I've never seen any or heard any cases of the mantis actually coming forward, except for direct contactees like maybe yourself, since you're having this experience, where they've actually, put you in I've, one of the interviews I did with a gentleman who had a mantis experience. He said they literally put him in a chair and they literally opened his brain while he was sort of alive or aware, and they were, feeling around in his brain and doing stuff, which seems a little scary, could be quite scary in that thing, but they were actually doing work to clear out negative energies and help him overall. So at the end of the experience, you sort of got a tune-up in a sense, but the act during that process, he was freaking out. He's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So my first experience with them too was they showed up in a meditation. One being showed up with his sort of back to me, like I could see the behind his head sort of thing. And I was like, why is this thing showing up in my meditation? And he slowly turns around and looks at me, and I got sucked into his eyes, and the eyes were very, if you've seen the eyes there's so much there.
Yeah.
They're like a bee eyes almost in a sense, with all the hexagons and the rainbow colors, and just, there's a lot there to it. And I was just fascinated. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so beautiful. And then a week later, they showed up in my bedroom. And I was like, okay, is this what I get for admiring you guys? And they kind of said yes. They're like, you weren't afraid. Most people are afraid when they come in contact with us. So you weren't. And that was sort of a test, a way to sort of slowly introduce themselves. To see if I was going to be afraid or not. And I was more curious than afraid. So then they came back. But I've had my fair share of great experiences with the interactions with those beings.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like how you said angelic. That definitely, when it smiled in my head, it definitely kind of changed my mind on the whole thing. So I watched an interview with you, and you were talking about kind of like moving into the 5D, and which has always kind of made me feel weird when people talk about that. I'm like, well, we're here having a 3D experience. I personally believe some people are too spiritual. Like, we're here to have this 3D experience, and some people get sucked into that. But the way you explained it totally blew my mind. So I would love to hear you talk about that. But you also, something I'm really passionate about is the fact that, I believe we're moving more like heart-based energy, heart-based time. And, why is that important to you?
The terminologies get sort of depending on the channeler or the, who's presenting it. But this sort of general concept now that we've heard, moving from the 3D to the 5D. I'm not really a big fan of that because there's so many misconceptions with 3D. I think we generally can agree that the 3D is this physical reality. And then you have to try to explain, well, what is the 5D, and what happened to the 4D,
we skipped the number.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Exactly. So I like the concept of we are in the fourth dimension, like using actual physics terms. Like Einstein says, we're in, in the fourth dimension as far as space-time being the fourth dimensional component to our reality, to, sort of three-dimensional space. So we already are in the fourth dimension. Mm-hmm. And the fifth dimension, in physics terms, from my understanding, is more about time and how we perceive time. The space-time component, it's in the fourth dimension is very linear, where in the fifth dimension we can start jumping around and going outside of the linear concepts of time. What a lot of the channelers, not all, but what a lot of them do agree on with the terminology in Ra as well, is the density terms.
Yes,
I really resonate with this idea that we are moving into the fourth density, into this heart space where people are more interconnected and feeling things in that sense. And we're letting go of the fight or flight survival stuff. And to me, that helps me sort of get on the right track and not get too heady with the 3D and the 5D and all that stuff.
It's perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you said that. I think, I used to be super negative. I came from a very negative place. So then, being able to pull yourself out is just awesome. So thank you.
Have you, Chris, though? Have you pulled yourself out?
No, I'm still super negative, of course, but I'm like 51% positive. That's all that matters, right? That 1 extra percent. And so, yeah, thanks.
I think what we, and Bashar says this too, we are masters of limitation here in this realm. We are going down a very narrow road of consciousness exploration, where on these higher vibratory arenas, these higher density realities, I think our choices are very expanded and varied. And sometimes we're sort of pinholed into, just like, how do I pay my bills this month? And for these ETs, just the concept of bills is a whole different ball game. And what's told to me, and it makes sense over and over in these interviews, is through our exploration of limitation, we are teaching our counterparts, our other versions of ourselves, how to figure out things. Perhaps a simple thing like we're feuding with a neighbor over a property, a fence line or something that's not in the proper space, and us sort of having that feud and that battle and figuring that out can then save a whole planet on the other side of the galaxy, like the ripple effect, or the however we figure that out. It's so unique, it's so limited, but because of that limited constraint and whatever we do to figure that out, it's like a big aha moment for them. They're like, we would have never thought about that. Like, you guys are awesome for taking this exploration into limitation, and then you just helped us save the universe over, this part of the universe over here that there's warring and these things happening. So those things that we think as just mundane, just little human things, are actually big deals to some of these. Energetically can be really big deals to other sides of the universe.
That just blew my mind.
It seems like they're fascinated by the idea that, like, we are so limited. Like, imagine if you went into the world and you didn't realize you reincarnate, you didn't realize that God existed, you didn't realize this, and let's tell them that there's an alien over your shoulder. Like, there's almost this moment where, like, it's almost like a reality TV show in some senses, like, that we're sort of blindfolded and pushed out on stage. But they because they're so universal in their consciousness, that really blew me away. What you said was, like, because they had never limited their scope to such a small point of view, they had missed things that the Earthlings catch. So it's a fascinating point there that you all make, from your work.
Oh, I was just going to add on to that. So, and one of the things that's constantly said through many of the different beings is that as we evolve, as humans evolve, and we become sort of spacefaring and working off planet, the human species is going to be sort of like how we look at Palladians or Arcturians. Humans will be that sort of looked up to species in the galaxy for going around and doing damage control and helping other civilizations that are going through their evolution process. Like we'll become guides to other civilizations in the future because of our exploration into limitation. We'll have a vast knowledge and emotional spectrum that a lot of the ETs also don't have. So that is sort of a win for us in the future. Right now, we have to kind of figure it all out, but in the future, we'll be sort of revered.
Just that knowledge alone of that being the goal could relieve so much suffering. Just that one piece of wisdom there, that this is what we're ultimately going to do when people are feeling so limited. So that is so brilliant. I love it.
Totally. It's like if we have the choice to look at ourselves through this lens, why not? I mean, it's to me, it's not, it doesn't feel, or it doesn't seem like a false hope or a negative thing to look at humans as through that lens. Why not? Let's own it.
Makes more
Yeah,
sense.
we're going through it.
It makes more sense other than we just incarnated just because. And
yeah, that's it. The other thing is, we talk about this sort of transformation that Earth is going through from third density to fourth density. What I keep hearing from the ETs is this is happening across the universe. It's happening. It's not just localized to Earth. This is a galactic giant shift that all beings are going through this energetic shift at the same time. So as we upgrade, we're the Pleiadians are upgrading, the Octurians are upgrading. Everybody's getting an upgrade, and it may show up in different forms and fashion, but there is this giant upgrade happening in the universe.
That's fascinating. Isn't one of the unique qualities of being Earthlings that we have high emotional fields, that we're all Karens, basically?
Yes. Yes. I don't know about the Karen thing, but for sure that is right now it might be something that may seem as an inhibitance to our evolution. But as we sort of get it in check, once we can flesh out the Karen aspects, perhaps we can then become guides to others because of our emotional spectrum, because we have such a wide access and range to emotions that, and it's been our downfall. Look at the ages, thousands of years of fighting and war and destruction. Knee-jerk emotional responses to certain things. But as we figure that out, we're like, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. We can kind of, what is this emotion thing? Maybe we can use it for a positive aspect.
Might be something good after all. So, looking at your perspective of all these extra dimensionals, what is the official buzz on the cosmic street as far as when we have real disclosure? Is that something that is in the control of the extra dimensionals? Are they waiting for our military to stop shooting them down? What's the word?
Wow. There's a lot there. Going to Wendy's work in the piece, she's saying we're in this term called the frequency wars, which is going into 2026.
Okay.
And so once we're done with the frequency wars, then the planet will be in a more sort of harmonically aligned position for ETs to start showing up in mass. The vision that I keep seeing is there's still going to be pockets of the planet that have, even though we get through the frequency wars, there's still going to be sort of negative projections and, some of the hardcore religious folks that are wanting to maintain their dominance and control. They're going to stay that way. They're going to have their cults and they're going to keep people in those control fear spaces. So the ETs do not want to trigger anybody. They that's the last thing they want to do is just to show up to create more turmoil and more infighting and all that stuff. So they're really only going to show up, I think, to people who are going to be welcoming them and embracing their what they have to offer as far as technology and spiritual guidance. And so I think what I see is pockets of the planet of groups of people coming together and creating, I don't want to say intentional communities because that gets all weird. It can get quite kind of culty. But communities or groups of people that are open-minded and ready to receive without the cult aspects, because that's another thing is they don't want cults. So they're going to stay away from any cults that are like, hey, ETs, we're gathering here together so you can come and, and there's a lot of that stuff.
It's going to undo all their work they're doing. To have
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if you want to have an ET experience, it's all about that heart space, that energy. If you're afraid and scared, you're not going to have an experience because they're not in the, you may have a negative experience from a negative being showing up because that's, those negative beings are attracted to that stuff. But the positive oriented ETs, which are the ones we want to be interacting with, they're not in the fear game. So if you've got fear running inside, they're not going to show up. And that's been sort of one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the course of the show is, these beings are here to help us learn our independence and our sovereignty, and that they're not above us. They may seem, with the technology and everything, they may seem hierarchically, better than or more advanced, and they are in those technical aspects. But the thing that they drill in over and over again is that we are all unique, powerful beings, and they have just as much to learn from us as we have from them. And that's the exchange.
It's exciting. And Reuben, I just want to say thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it. You're very open as a person. You have your own really community at, if I'm not mistaken, interviewwithed.org, correct? Where you are on every Sunday live with these Extradimensionals and these channels. Also tell us you have an event coming up this summer. We can hang out with you and aliens in the mountains.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's called the Lemurian Life Expo. And you can just one word, LemurianLifeExpo.com, check it out. We have Lemurian energy that is quite prominent in Mount Shasta. So telling that story a little bit during the conference and raising our vibration so we can connect into the beings that already exist there. There's galactic energies that come in and out of the mountain. It's a big hotspot for UFO activity. It will be, if you can't make it in person, we will be live streaming it as well. So,
and the weather in Mount Shasta is absolutely perfect in June, by the way, I just have to say, as far as California. In closing, we have kind of an ongoing bet here with our roundtable of our own dimensionals. And it's a question that only you can answer. Can you tell us, is or is not Elon Musk an alien?
Well, this is an interesting topic because last week, I actually, during my my latest Raw interview, which is also like a subsection on my membership portal, we have these Raw section. I actually interacted with what I thought was Elon Musk on a Twitter space, on an X space a couple weeks ago, and you may have heard it's actually there's news actually getting out. This Adrian Dittman is a sort of an Elon clone that's out on X holding spaces and doing things. And a lot of people, he showed up on an Alex Jones show talking to David Icke. And everybody was like, this is Elon Musk, totally. And even Alex was like, you're totally Elon Musk. Stop acting like you're not. And so Adrian been a very interesting character, and I played back the recording for Raw from Adrian and then Elon, and we kind of went back and forth. And Raw said that the vibrational harmonic frequency that was coming from the Adrian, which sound exactly alike, but the Raw channel was saying that Adrian is an actual AI, an Elon AI that was constructed to help do tasks for Elon. So because he's got so much going on, he's sort of cloned himself through this AI to handle stuff, to do things. And that the frequency was quite different. So Ra is also, I've asked about Elon through Ra, and Ra has said that that Elon is connected to some higher consciousnesses, sort of ET stuff, but he's not necessarily aware of it yet. And so he could be an alien. He's probably from Mars. That's my guess. I just don't think he's awakened to it yet.
Interesting. Which may be why he's trying to go home.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Reuben. We really appreciate your time. Even though time is only an invention of humankind. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. It's been a great time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great. I love these topics.
So much fun.
Yeah, thanks, Reuben.
Thanks, Reuben.
All right. Bye, guys.